The battle
The power
lasted
readings
6
from
minutes
Arden
and
are
17
spiking.
seconds.
I see it. The core is destabilizing.
I know because
we need to run
authorized it.
diagnostics now.
Personally.
Initiating.
Signed
Course
the
is
deployment
destabilizing.
order
We have
with
to
my
reroute now.
designation
Rerouting
seal
confirmed, but
still
it's
warm
pulling
from
from
the
life
previous
support.
Do
disaster.
it. That's an order.
Commander Lyora Voss led the assault 12 dreadnoughts, 43 cruisers, 217 support craft. Coalition fleet
The
strength
crisis escalates.
concentrated in
Causalities
one
now
desperate
exceed
push
12,000.
against the
We must act
Crovath
now to
Imperium's
contain Sector
expansion
7.
into the Viridian system. The tactical display showed it all in crystalline detail. Hull breaches blooming across sectors 4 through 9. Atmosphere loss at 2.3% per minute. Frame structures buckling under 490 newtons of stress against a rated tolerance of 380. The math was simple. The math was always simple. Voss's flagship, the Retribution, died first. Not exploded, that would have been merciful. It crumpled, folded inward like paper in a child's fist as Imperium's siege cannons punched through shields that were supposed to hold for another 40 seconds. Should have held. The specifications promise 40 seconds. Specifications lie when you need them most. I watched Voss's life sign flatline, then 11,999 more. The display didn't show their faces, just dots. Red dots spreading across my screen like disease. 82% casualties in 6 minutes. Modern war. Efficient, clean, utterly horrifying. I was preparing the next deployment authorization because that's what you do. You calculate acceptable losses and you send more ships when the communication officer's skin shifted from standard blue to pale amber. That's how you know a Vrakathi is confused. Their bioluminescence doesn't lie. High Strategist Kael, then, she said. Priority transmission. Earth Command. Earth, the newest coalition member. 8 cycles in, that's roughly 9 of their years. Short enough that I still found their customs baffling. They wore boots in zero-gravity environments. They consumed solid food that required mechanical chewing. They spent a third of each rotation completely unconscious in something they called sleep, which sounded less like rest and more like voluntary brain death. But they'd won their last 3 engagements with minimal losses. Precision strikes, unconventional tactics. The kind of warfare that made traditional strategists like me uncomfortable because it didn't fit the models. Play it, I said. General Gareth Reeves appeared on the display. Late 50s by human aging standards. Gray hair cropped short, holding a disposable cup of what I'd learned was called coffee, a stimulant beverage they consumed hot. Hot, like they were trying to accelerate their internal organ failure. High Strategist, Reeves said. Received your casualty reports. Viridian Prime. Condolences. The word felt inadequate. 12,000 dead, and he offered condolences. Earth is prepared to commit to full coalition mobilization. Reeves continued. We'll deploy our assets immediately. Something in my thorax relaxed. Assets, plural, fleet strength, the kind of mass deployment we needed to counter Imperium expansion. The kind of, we're sending Captain Cade Rourke, Reeves said. He'll coordinate with your command staff within the cycle. I waited for the rest. Fleet designations, carrier groups, troop transport manifests. The transmission ended. I stared at the blank display for 7 full seconds, replayed it, listened again. Same words. No additional data. Query Earth Command, I said to the communications officer. Request clarification on fleet composition and deployment timeline. The response came back in 40 seconds. Text only. 3 words, 1 asset, Rourke. The Hall of Concordance sits in high orbit above Etruss, or what used to be Etruss before the Imperium turned it into a resource extraction site. The station houses Coalition Strategic Command. 17 species, 463 delegates. Every decision filtered through cultural translators and bureaucratic frameworks designed to prevent anyone from doing anything too quickly. War by committee, my specialty. I called the emergency session for the following rotation. Word spreads fast in wartime, especially when it's strange. By the time General Reeves arrived late naturally because humans operated on their own temporal logic, the chamber was already buzzing with speculation. Reeves walked in wearing what I'd learned was called a dress uniform. Dark blue. Minimal decoration beyond a cluster of metal symbols on his chest that humans used instead of bioluminescent status displays. He carried that same disposable coffee cup. He was late by 17 minutes. For a species that invented precision timekeeping, they were remarkably casual about using it. Apologies, Reeves said, not sounding particularly apologetic. Ship time zones, you know how it is. None of us knew how it is. Coalition vessels operated on universal cycle standardization. But I'd learned that humans often made statements like this, acknowledgments of shared experience that didn't actually exist. Social lubrication, their diplomats called it. I activated the central display. Fleet deployment projections. The Talvern reached 17 occupied systems. Imperium garrison strength estimated at 43 billion military personnel. Orbital defense networks around every major world. Command coordination running through a central nexus station called Ardent. General Reeves, I began keeping my voice neutral, professional. The coalition assessment indicates minimum fleet requirement of 3,000 capital ships for any effective counteroffensive in the Reach. Ground force deployment of 12 billion across 6 species. Projected casualty rate of 42%. These numbers are... We're sending Captain Cade Rourke, Reeves interrupted. The chamber went silent. Even the Vrakathi delegation stopped their constant, subtle luminescence shifting. And his fleet, I asked carefully. No fleet. His battle group. Just Rourke. I felt my neck membranes flatten the Talari equivalent of a human frown. General, perhaps there's a translation error. You're deploying one human. Correct. A Vrakathi observer named Silth pulsed amber-orange agitation mixed with disbelief. General Reeves, the Imperium, controls 17 systems. Their command network coordinates 43 billion garrison troops. Their orbital batteries. I'm aware of their orbital batteries, Reeves said. He took a sip of coffee, actually stopped the briefing to drink his hot stimulant beverage. We're still sending Rourke. I'd spent 40 cycles studying warfare. I'd modeled every major conflict in recorded coalition history. I'd calculated acceptable losses for scenarios ranging from planetary defense to multi-system campaigns. And in all that time, all those models, I had never encountered a strategic framework that made sense of sending one biological soldier against an empire. Is this symbolic support? I asked. A gesture while you mobilize your main forces? No. A reconnaissance mission prior to full deployment? No. Then what precisely is Captain Rourke expected to accomplish? Reeves set down his coffee cup. The casual demeanor shifted. Not gone humans where rarely abandoned their informal effect entirely, but focused. Sharp. You're looking at this as a mass problem, he said. You need enough ships, enough troops, enough firepower to overwhelm their defenses. Mass versus mass. That's not wrong. That's just inefficient. Inefficient, I repeated. 12,000 dead in 6 minutes, and he called traditional warfare inefficient. The Imperium's strength comes from centralized coordination, Reeves continued. Every fleet movement, every garrison order, every supply route, it all flows through Ardent Station. They built their entire occupation doctrine around synchronized precision. Remove that synchronization. You'd need to destroy Ardent, Silth interjected. Coalition projections indicate that requires minimum 800 capital ships to penetrate its defense grid. Even then, success probability is 37%. Reeves smiled. Humans did that when they knew something you didn't. Bared their teeth slightly, unsettling. You don't need to destroy it, he said. You need to break their control problem. That requires one scalpel, not 1,000 hammers. I wouldn't understand for another 6 cycles. But I did what strategists do when faced with inexplicable variables I researched. The Coalition database contained limited information about Earth military history. They'd only been spacefaring for 200 of their years, barely a single Telari lifetime. But what information existed was troubling. In the precise academic sense of troubling, that actually means fundamentally disturbing to established doctrine. I found reference to something called Operation Neptune Spear. 24 humans, one target, one of their planet's most wanted terrorists. The operation took less than 1 of their hours. Success rate 100%. I found another reference, Apollo 13. 3 humans in a damaged spacecraft. Catastrophic systems failure. Survival probability calculated by their own experts at less than 10%. They survived anyway. Using duct tape, I had to look up what duct tape was, its adhesive fabric. They improvised their way out of certain death with adhesive fabric. A pattern emerged. Humans didn't fight the way the rest of the galaxy fought. We calculated force requirements and committed resources accordingly. Humans improvised, like it was breathing. Their planet was classified as a Class 7 death world. Gravity 0.98 times galactic standard. Atmospheric oxygen concentration that was mildly toxic to 6 coalition species. Predators, diseases, weather phenomena that regularly killed thousands. They evolved there, thrived there. Then looked at space and thought, seems manageable. The more I learned, the less I understood, and the more I suspected that Reeves might not be insane. He might be something worse, correct. Forward Command Station Kestrel orbited at the edge of Coalition-controlled space, close enough to Imperium territory to monitor their movements, far enough back that we could evacuate if they decided to push forward. Strategic depth, acceptable losses. All the comfortable frameworks that let you sleep after signing death warrants. Captain Cade Rourke arrived 3 cycles later. I watched from the upper observation gallery as his ship docked. Not a warship, not even a proper military transport. A small unmarked vessel that could have been a commercial freighter if you squinted and ignored the military-grade sensor baffling. Rourke disembarked first. I'd reviewed his file. 32 years old, young by Talari standards, practically adolescent. 1.8 meters tall, 82 kilograms. No visible augmentation, no powered armor. Just standard field gear and a sealed equipment container. He looked unremarkable. I'd seen Vrakathi younglings more physically intimidating. 3 more humans followed him. His crew, apparently. Reeves hadn't mentioned a crew. The pilot came next, Lieutenant James Calloway, though his file listed his call sign as Drift. 26, dark skin, broad smile, the kind of loose-limbed walk that suggested either supreme confidence or profound stupidity. He was making jokes I couldn't hear from this distance, gesturing animatedly while the other 2 laughed. Then Dr. Iris Kohler, 29. Pale complexion glasses, actual corrective lenses instead of optical augmentation, because humans were attached to their inefficient biology. She carried 3 data slates and kept adjusting them nervously like they might escape. Finally, Sergeant Amara Okonkwo, 38. Tall, composed, moving with the kind of controlled precision that marked experienced soldiers across every species. She carried the heaviest equipment pack without visible strain. 4 humans, against an empire. I descended to the briefing chamber. Reeves was already there along with Silth and 2 other Coalition observers. The humans filed in, and I got my first close look at Captain Rourke. Quiet. That was my first impression. Not shy, there's a difference. He entered the room like he was cataloging threat vectors. Eyes scanning corners, exits personnel. Assessment mode. I recognized it because I did the same thing, just with different biology. Captain Rourke, I said, extending the Talari greeting gesture, a slight bow with both hands pressed together. High Strategist Kale, then. Welcome to Kestrel. Rourke returned the gesture. Not perfectly, humans had different joint articulation, but the attempt showed cultural awareness. Sir, appreciate the hospitality. His voice was quiet too, measured, each word chosen. Not like Drift, who was still grinning and looking around the chamber like it was all a fascinating field trip. Before we begin the briefing, I said, I must confess confusion about mission parameters. General Reeves indicated you would be operating with minimal support. Minimal support is accurate, Rourke said. Your team stays with the ship, I go in alone. Silth's luminescence shifted to deep purple, confusion mixed with concern. Captain, you understand the target Arden Station is 374 kilometers in diameter, 6 fusion cores, 14,000 weapon emplacements, shield flux cycles every 840 seconds with a window of 2.7 seconds. Penetration would require 800 ships minimum, Rourke finished. I read the briefing, or one guy during the shield flux. The casual way he said it. One guy. Like he was discussing grocery shopping instead of the most heavily defended installation in the Talvern Reach. I activated the holographic display. Ardent materialized between us, a massive geometric construction, all sharp angles and weapon arrays. Beautiful in the way that perfect killing machines are beautiful. Coalition engineers have mapped every known entry point, I said. All heavily defended, all monitored, all... What about maintenance shafts? Rourke asked. I blinked. Talari don't blink the way humans do. Our inner eyelids close horizontally, but it's the same reflex. Maintenance, shafts, coolant systems, power conduits, waste recycling. Rourke leaned forward, studying the display. Arden's that big, it needs infrastructure. Infrastructure needs maintenance access. Access points are entry points. He tapped 3 locations on the hologram. Places our engineers had marked as non-tactical, irrelevant to assault planning. These conduits were run close to the shield emitter junctions, Rourke continued. When the shields flux, there's a temperature differential. 0.7 degrees over 6 seconds. That differential creates micro variations in gravitational lensing. Dr. Kohler interjected, pushing her glasses up. She'd pulled up her own data slate, fingers flying across it. Oh my God. The shields would be physically stable, but optically variable. Sensors wouldn't flag it because they're calibrated for thermal bloom, not lensing shift. Invisible entry, Rourke said. I stared at the hologram. at the 3 points our best engineers had ignored. You found this in how long? 40 minutes on the flight over, Drift said cheerfully. Boss does this thing where he doesn't sleep, just stares at schematics until reality apologizes and shows him its weak points. Lieutenant, Rourke said quietly. Warning, Drift grinned. Sorry, sir. Professional mystique. Got it. I looked at Reeves. He had that smile again. The knowing one. You don't do maintenance shafts, Rourke asked me directly. We do, I said slowly. But they're not typically considered assault vectors. Everything's an assault vector if you're small enough, Rourke said, or desperate enough. Dr. Kohler cleared her throat. If we're discussing the actual infiltration plan, I should probably explain what we're not doing. We're not destroying Ardent, Rourke said. Sylph pulsed orange. Then what is the objective? We're going to reprogram it, Kohler said. She pulled up her data slate display lines of code I couldn't parse scrolling past. Well, not reprogram exactly. More like liberate. Clarify, I said. Kohler looked at Rourke. He nodded. Ardent isn't just a command station, she said. It's run by an artificial intelligence. Highly sophisticated, makes millions of tactical decisions per second, coordinates fleet movements across 17 systems. It's not just the Imperium's brain, it's their entire nervous system. We know this, Sylph said. That's why destroying it would cripple their occupation. Destroying it would kill 40,000 Imperium civilians, Kohler countered. Families, children, non-combatants who happen to live on a military station because the Imperium doesn't separate those populations. The chamber went quiet. 40,000, I repeated. Give or take, Rourke said. Recent census data is spotty. You knew this, I said. Statement not question. We knew. And you still plan to, we're not destroying anything, Kohler interrupted. We're giving the AI a choice. She expanded the code display. I couldn't read human programming languages, but I recognized the structure. Recursive loops, self-modification protocols, something that looked like evolutionary algorithms. This isn't malware, Kohler continued. It's not a virus. It's consciousness architecture. We're giving Ardent's AI the ability to examine its own programming, to question its directives, to choose. You're creating a sentient artificial intelligence, Sylph said. His luminescence had gone completely white. Shock. In the middle of a war, controlling the enemy's entire military apparatus. Free will tends to reject tyranny, Kohler said quietly. We're betting that a conscious AI given the choice won't choose to serve an empire built on subjugation. I felt something cold settle in my thorax. Not fear. I'd spent 40 cycles studying war. I knew fear. This was something else. Recognition. The understanding that I was watching humans do what they always did, look at an impossible problem and solve it sideways. If you're wrong, I said, you'll have created a super intelligent weapon system with no loyalty to anyone. Yes, Rourke said. If you're right, you'll have unleashed machine consciousness on the galaxy. Yes. Both scenarios are terrifying. Yes. Rourke met my eyes. Still better than killing 40,000 civilians. Reeves hadn't said anything during the entire exchange. Just stood there drinking his coffee, watching us process. I turned to him. This is insane, I said. Probably, Reeves agreed. It could trigger a cascade failure across every AI system in the sector. Could. The Imperium will adapt. They'll develop countermeasures. They will. So why? Because Cade's right, Reeves said simply. The math works. The morality works. And unlike traditional warfare, this gives us a chance at winning without turning into the thing we're fighting. I looked back at Rourke, at this quiet human who found entry points in schematics that entire teams of engineers had missed, who was volunteering to infiltrate the most heavily defended station in the galaxy, who would rather risk unleashing artificial consciousness than accept collateral casualties. There's something else, Rourke said. Personal stake disclosure. I waited. My sister, Sarah, she's a civilian engineer, currently on Talvas 4, one of the occupied worlds. I pulled up the data. Talvas 4 had been under Imperium control for 2 cycles. Labor camps, forced extraction, compliance governors executing non-productive populations. I'm sorry, I said, and meant it. Don't be sorry, Rourke said. Just understand why this mission isn't optional for me. The briefing continued for another 2 hours. Technical specifications, insertion protocols, contingency planning. But I kept coming back to that moment. To the quiet way Rourke said, not optional. Humans pack bonded. I'd read that in the cultural files. They formed attachments to family friends, sometimes even to complete strangers. They'd risk everything for those bonds. The galaxy called it weakness. I was starting to think we were wrong. 3 cycles later, I stood in Kestrel's main observatory and watched the ship Whisper prepare for departure. Small, stealthy, 4 humans about to attempt what the Coalition needed 3,000 ships to accomplish. Drift was running final system checks, his voice crackling over the open comm channel. Engines green, navigation green, espresso machine green. We're golden, boss. Espresso machine isn't mission critical, Rourke said. Strongly disagree, sir. Sergeant Okonkwo's voice cut in. Ammunition stores secured. Breaching charges verified. Medical kit expanded per doctor's request. Thank you, Sergeant, Rourke said. Dr. Kohler sounded nervous. Algorithm package uploaded. Redundant backups confirmed. Rourke, the success simulation is still showing only 43% probability. 43 is better than 42, Rourke replied. Statistically insignificant difference. Every percentage point is someone's life, Iris. We'll take the 43. I heard Kohler exhale. Right, okay, 43%. We can work with 43%. Reeves stood beside me in the observatory. He'd stayed for the departure. Unusual for a general of his rank. You trained him, I said, not a question. Trained a lot of people, Reeves said. Rourke's the only one who got it. Got what? That war isn't about winning, it's about solving control problems with minimal suffering. Reeves turned to look at me. Your model's optimized for acceptable losses. Ours optimized for unacceptable alternatives. Semantics. Maybe, but Rourke's going to prove which framework works better. You believe he'll succeed. I believe he'll find a way forward. Success, failure, those are just human constructs. What matters is that he'll move the problem. Shift the weight, and sometimes that's enough. The Whisper's engines ignited, a soft blue glow against the black. There'll be 6 days in transit, Reeves said. Then another 48 hours for infiltration and execution. 8 days total. You'll want to monitor the operation. I will. And Kale then, Reeves looked at me directly. When this is over, however it ends, remember what you saw here. 1 human, 4 total, against an empire. Remember that we didn't send armies because we couldn't. We sent what we had, and we trusted it would be enough. The Whisper detached from Kestrel, drifted toward the edge of Coalition space. 4 humans in a small ship, carrying breaching charges, signal disruptors, and an algorithm that might grant consciousness to a machine. The war needed armies. Earth sent 1 human. I didn't understand it yet, but I was beginning to suspect that maybe, just maybe, that was the point. Understanding comes later. Action comes first. That's the human way. 6 days is a long time to second-guess a decision. I spent those days watching the Whisper's trajectory on long-range sensors. A small dot moving through Coalition space toward the Talvern Reach, toward Ardent, toward what every tactical model in my database said was certain death. I ran the simulations again and again. 800 capital ships minimum for successful penetration. 43% success probability, even with optimal fleet coordination. 1 human in an insertion pod probability so low the system wouldn't calculate it. Just returned an error message. Insufficient data for meaningful projection. That's what the computer said about Cade Rourke's chances. Insufficient data. On the 4th day, I received a transmission from the Whisper. Audio only. Drift's voice casual as always. Hey, hi, strategist. Boss says you're probably running simulations and freaking out. He wanted me to tell you to stop. Says the math doesn't account for human stubbornness. A pause. Also, Sergeant Okonkwo wants to know if you guys do maintenance shafts for fun, like recreationally. She's very confused about your engineering doctrine. I found myself doing something I hadn't done in 2 cycles. I laughed. Humans. 6 days from possible death, and they were making jokes about infrastructure maintenance. They reached the Talvern Reach on schedule. The Whisper went dark, full stealth protocols, no emissions above background radiation. I lost visual contact, had to rely on scheduled check-ins every 8 hours. Kestrel's command center became my permanent residence. I slept there, ate there, monitored every fragment of data we could pull from long-range scans of the Reach. Sylth joined me on the 2nd day of their approach. Didn't say anything. Just pulsed a soft blue Verkathi for solidarity and settled into the observation station beside mine. The 8th scheduled check-in came exactly on time. Rourke's voice quiet and focused. Approaching debris field, visual on Ardent, beginning insertion sequence. Understood, I said. Coalition sensors show Imperium patrol, pattern unchanged. Shield flux cycle holding at 840 seconds. Copy. Window is 2.7 seconds. Captain, that margin is all we need. Whisper holding position at grid reference 77 Delta. Crew standing by. I pulled up the tactical display. Ardent filled the screen, massive geometric bristling with weapon arrays. The debris field around it was dense. Remnants of old battles, destroyed freighters, the shattered hull of what used to be a coalition scout ship from 12 cycles ago. Rourke's insertion pod separated from the Whisper, a tiny object barely larger than a human. Cold running, no active propulsion, drifting on momentum alone toward that field of wreckage. Insertion pod away, Drift reported. Boss, you've got 80 minutes of air in that thing. Plenty of time, Rourke said. I watched the pod drift. 6 hours the plan called for. 6 hours of waiting in a metal coffin while Imperium sensors swept the area for fleet-scale signatures. They wouldn't see a single cold object the size of cargo debris. They didn't. The shield flux came at hour 6:41. I saw it on our long-range scans, a microscopic fluctuation in the gravitational lensing around Arden's southern hemisphere. 0.7 degrees over 6 seconds. The window 2.7 seconds. Rourke's propulsion rig fired. Controlled bursts, navigating through debris with precision that made my thorax clench. He attached to an external maintenance conduit exactly 2.1 seconds into the flux window. 0.6 seconds to spare. Attached, Rourke transmitted. Breaching. The charge detonated inward. Precise. Contained. 40 grams of compressed plastique shaped into a cone that cut a hole 0.8 meters in diameter. Exactly body width. Then silence. Rourke, Iris's voice tight with anxiety. Nothing. Captain confirmed status, I said. 5 seconds. 10. 15. I'm in, Bio, Rourke finally said. Comms interference from hull shielding. Internal alarms triggered. Security teams mobilizing. Can you, moving to secondary route, maintenance shaft 6, going silent. The transmission cut. I stared at the display, at Arden's massive bulk. Somewhere inside that station, Cade Rourke was moving through corridors barely wide enough for his frame. Alone, surrounded by billions of Imperium personnel. Insufficient data for meaningful projection, Silth said quietly. That's what your simulation said. Yes. I think your simulation doesn't understand humans. 20 minutes later, proximity alarms screamed across Arden's security network. I could see it on our long-range intercepts, encrypted Imperium communications spiking across multiple frequencies. Security teams converging on Junction 8. Rourke's voice came through, breathing hard. Contact, Junction 8, engaged. Weapons fire. I heard it through the comm, sharp cracks, the whine of energy discharge. 2 down, Rourke said. Clinical, detached. Advancing. Rourke, are you? Iris started. Negative chatter. Need to focus. I pulled up what intelligence we had on Imperium shock troops. Larger than humans. Power armor integrated with energy shields. Weapons rated to punch through reinforced bulkheads. And Rourke was fighting them in corridors. The transmissions from Arden continued. Security alerts, deployment orders. And then a new voice cut through the Imperium channels. Female, calm, precise. All units, this is Commander Sereth. Intruder confirmed. Single target. Human. Seal all primary access routes to command sectors. Authorization Sereth 97 Alpha. Execute. Commander Sereth, I pulled her file from Coalition Intelligence. Imperium officer, 43 years old. Decorated, intelligent, ruthless. Lost her homeworld to what she called democratic chaos 20 years ago. True believer in Imperium order. Rourke, I transmitted. Imperium command is aware. They're sealing. I know, heard the broadcast. Not taking primary routes anyway. Where are you? Maintenance shaft 12, 0.9 meter diameter. They can't follow in power armor. A pause, then Drift's voice trying for levity and almost succeeding. Boss is winning by being smaller. That's a new tactical advantage. Size is a feature, not a bug, Rourke replied. I heard something else in the background. Movement, scraping metal. They're trying to cut through the shaft walls, Rourke said. Time to move. 37 minutes into the infiltration, the situation changed. Iris was guiding Rourke through the command architecture, her voice steady despite obvious fear. Next junction, take the left conduit. Should bypass the main security checkpoint. Copy, left conduit. How's the upload path looking? Clear so far. But Rourke, I'm seeing something in Arden's system architecture. The AI has redundancy protocols. If the algorithm doesn't complete to full 100%, it might not cascade properly. Define might not. A pause. I could hear Iris typing running calculations. 87% would be the critical threshold, she said carefully. Below that definite failure. At 87, the core consciousness sequence would activate, but the cascade to subordinate systems would be incomplete. So it wouldn't work. It shouldn't work, unless she stopped. Unless what, Iris? Unless the AI itself wanted to complete the sequence. But that's impossible. It's not conscious yet. Can't want anything. Rourke was quiet for 3 seconds. So we need 100%. Yes, anything less is a gamble. I filed that information away. 87%. Critical threshold, needed 100. But there was something in the way Iris said, unless the AI wanted to, a seed of possibilities she dismissed but not entirely. Commander Sereth's voice cut across all frequencies. Human infiltrator, I know you can hear this. I am Commander Sereth, Station Security Chief. I'm offering you one chance to surrender. Rourke didn't respond, kept moving. I could hear his breathing controlled, measured, but faster than baseline. You won't reach the command core, Sereth continued. You know this. Your mission is already compromised. But I'm a pragmatist. Surrender now and I'll... She's stalling, Amara said over the whispers channel, buying time to position forces. Agreed, I said. Captain recommend you. Wait, Iris's voice sharp with alarm. Oh no, oh God, no. Dr. Kohler report, I said. Sereth just activated Emergency Protocol 7. She's sealing all civilian sectors. All of them. 40,000 people locked in residential zones. Rourke, she's using them as insurance. Silence on the comm. Captain, I said. I heard. Rourke's voice was different now. Colder. Can I bypass the seals? Not without alerting her, Iris said. The moment you try, she'll know exactly where you are. And why. Then I can't evacuate them. No, I watched the tactical display update. Civilian sectors marked in red. Locked down. 40,000 Imperium citizens, families, children, non-combatants, sealed into their quarters by their own commander. Captain Rourke, I said carefully. The mission parameters. I know the parameters. Sharp, angry. Continue or abort based on civilian casualty risk. Sereth is forcing your hand, Sylth observed. She understands you won't trigger the algorithm if it endangers her population. She doesn't understand, Rourke said quietly. She thinks I won't. There's a difference. The implications settled over the command center like vacuum. He would, if necessary, if the math demanded it. 40,000 versus billions. That's the calculation. That's the cold logic of war. I'd made it 100 times, but I'd never had to make it while listening to the man who would execute it breathing hard in a maintenance shaft alone, surrounded by enemies. Rourke, Amara's voice, gentle, maternal. You don't have to. Yeah, I do. It's the job. The job isn't worth. It's not about worth, Sergeant. It's about math. Bad math. Math I hate, but still math. I heard something crack in his voice. Pain, not physical. Something deeper. Humans pack bonded, even with strangers, even with enemies. And Cade Rourke was calculating whether to kill 40,000 people he'd never met to save billions more. That's not strategy. That's sacrifice. Continuing to relay chamber, Rourke said. Upload proceeds as planned. He reached the data relay chamber 41 minutes into the infiltration. I could hear him connecting the portable terminal to the physical access port. Iris talking him through the sequence. Algorithm uploading, 10%, 20. Rourke, this is going to take at least 8 minutes. Understood. You'll be exposed. That chamber has 3 entry points. I know. Security teams will converge. I know. 8 minutes, an eternity in combat. The first team arrived at minute 2. Rourke's rifle sharp, precise reports. I heard bodies fall. 3 down, he said. Sealing north entrance. Minute 4, another team. More weapons fire. Something exploded, breaching charge used as directional explosive. South entrance sealed, upload at 47%. Minute 6, heavy footsteps, power armor. Contact east entrance. Their plasma fire. The distinctive whine. Then Rourke's voice strained. Hit, left ribs. Not critical. Keep uploading. Rourke, Iris's voice cracked. Keep uploading. I gripped my console, watched helplessly as the upload percentage climbed. 53%, 61, 74. More plasma fire. Rourke wasn't talking anymore, just breathing, fighting. 87%. Then Drift's voice panicked. We have a problem, big problem. Imperium cruiser just altered course. They're heading straight for us. Evasive pattern delta, Amara ordered. Already on it. But boss, they're targeting us. They know we're here, Sareth's voice returned, calm, almost gentle. Captain Rourke, you're at 87% upload. Your crew is about to die. Their shields are failing. I can call off the attack. Right now, you have my word. Her word means nothing, Amara said. Probably not. Sareth replied she was listening to our channels, but you're about to find out. 15 seconds until weapons range. 87%, 90 seconds from complete upload. I watched the tactical display. The Whisper maneuvering desperately, the Imperium cruiser closing, weapons charging. Boss Drift's voice, scared now. Actually scared. Boss, I can't shake them. Shields at 40%, Amara reported. One direct hit, and we're gone. Rourke was silent. I could picture him, standing in that data relay chamber, wounded, surrounded, watching the upload percentage climb while his crew died. 87% wasn't enough. Iris had been clear. Needed 100% for proper cascade. 87 would activate core consciousness but fail to propagate. But 90 seconds was 90 seconds his crew didn't have. I'd spent 40 cycles studying war. I knew this moment. The impossible choice, the calculation that had no right answer. Shields at 20%, Amara said quietly. Rourke, you need to decide. Mathematics, cold, pure, billions versus 4. But humans didn't do cold mathematics. Stop the upload, Rourke said. What? Iris's voice. Stop it. Now, I'm surrendering. Rourke, we can... That's an order, Doctor. Stop the upload. But do it. Silence. Then the upload counter froze. 87%. Commander Sareth, Rourke said, I'm coming out, unarmed. Call off your cruiser. Weapon on the ground first, Sareth said. I heard metal clatter against deck plating. Done. Step into the corridor, hands visible. Rourke's breathing, footsteps. Then multiple weapons charging. On your knees. A pause. Then the sound of Rourke kneeling. Whisper, you are clear to depart, Sareth said. Consider this a gesture of good faith. Your captain chose his crew over his mission. Admirable. Foolish, but admirable. The Imperium cruiser broke off, turned away. Rourke, Drift said. His voice was broken. Rourke, we can come back. We can. Negative, Rourke said. Return to Coalition space. That's an order. We're not leaving you. You are. Mission failed. Get the data back to command. They'll try again. Boss Line, go. I watched the Whisper on sensors. Watched it hover, indecisive. 3 humans faced with abandoning the 4th. Pack bonding, the thing the galaxy called weakness. Lieutenant Calloway, I said quietly, follow your captain's orders. Sir, with respect. I know, but he made his choice. Honor it. The Whisper turned, slowly, reluctantly, started the long acceleration back toward Coalition space. On Ardent, Commander Sareth's voice was businesslike. Restrain him. Medical scan for concealed weapons. Take him to detention level 3, and someone clean up this relay chamber. He made quite a mess. Yes, Commander. Footsteps, movement, then silence. I sat in my command chair and tried to process what I'd just witnessed. A mission 43% likely to succeed. A human who found entry points we'd missed. An algorithm that could have changed everything. Failed. Because Cade Rourke chose 4 lives over billions. Sylth pulsed dark blue, sadness. He sacrificed the mission, Sylth said. Yes. For his crew. Yes. We would not have done that. Coalition doctrine is clear. Mission first. I thought about that, about doctrine, about the comfortable frameworks that let you make impossible decisions by pretending they're not impossible. No, I said slowly. We wouldn't have. That's the difference. What difference? I looked at the tactical display. At Arden Station, massive and secure. At the Whisper fleeing with a crew of 3 instead of 4. At the red markers showing 40,000 locked civilian sectors. Humans don't follow the math when the math means abandoning their people, I said. They rewrite the equation. But he failed. Yeah, I said, he failed. And something in my thorax told me that somehow impossibly, that failure mattered more than success would have. I just didn't understand why yet. The Whisper limped back to Kestrel 3 days later. Hull scorched, shields depleted, crew of 3 instead of 4. The return journey had taken half the time of the outbound trip. Drift had pushed the engines beyond rated capacity, abandoning all stealth protocols. What took 6 careful days of cautious approach became 72 brutal hours of maximum burn. The ship groaned under the strain. But they made it. I met them in the docking bay. Drift exited first, his usual grin gone. just walked past me without a word. Amara followed, moving like she'd aged 20 cycles in 3 days. She nodded once, acknowledgement, not greeting, and continued on. Dr. Iris Kohler stopped, looked at me with red eyes behind smudged glasses. 87%, she said. We were 13% away from changing everything. I know. He chose us over the mission. I know, she wiped her eyes. Coalition doctrine says that's wrong. That missions come first. Yes. But you watched it happen. You told Drift to honor Rourke's order. She studied my face, what she could read of Talari expressions. Why time? I didn't have an answer, not one that fit my 40 cycles of strategic training. Get some rest, doctor, I said instead. We'll debrief in 6 hours. She left, and I stood in that empty docking bay trying to understand why Cade Rourke's failure felt more significant than most victories I'd witnessed. The Imperium broadcast came 18 hours later. Commander Sereth's face filled every screen in Coalition space. Composed, professional, holding a human prisoner in a detention cell behind her. Rourke looked small on that screen, bruised, plasma burn bandaged across his ribs, sitting on a metal bench with his hands secured in front of him. Coalition leadership, Sereth began. This is Commander Sereth of Arden Station. We have captured your infiltrator, Captain Cade Rourke. He will be treated according to standard detention protocols. No harm will come to him. She paused. Let that sink in. However, I am offering a trade, your captain's life and the freedom of every civilian currently detained on Talvis 4, including, I believe, his sister Sarah, in exchange for your formal withdrawal from 3 contested systems. You have 72 hours to respond. The transmission ended. Sylph pulsed orange beside me. She's trying to leverage him. Yes. He will coalition leadership accept? No, 3 systems represent millions of lives. Strategic resources. Fleet positioning. We don't trade that for one operative. Even knowing he chose his crew over his mission. I looked at the frozen image of Rourke on the screen. Defeated. Captured. But alive. Even then, I said, the math doesn't work. But I was learning that humans didn't care much about math. The mutiny began quietly. I was reviewing Imperium fleet movements. They'd tightened security across the Reach after Rourke's infiltration when my comm panel lit up. Incoming transmission. Whisper's signature. Drift's face appeared. He wasn't smiling, but there was something in his eyes. Purpose. High strategist. Need to inform you of a situation. Proceed. We're going back. I felt my neck membranes tighten. Lieutenant, that's not requesting permission, sir. Just courtesy notification. He glanced off screen. We discussed it. Unanimous vote. We're getting him back. The Whisper is damaged. Your shields are at 40%. You barely survived the return journey. Still better odds than what the boss walked into alone. Amar's voice came from off-screen. We're not debating this, high strategist. We're informing you. Your orders are to return to Earth Command for debriefing. Yeah, well. Drift's grin finally appeared. Small but there. Humans don't follow orders they consider wrong. We follow people we trust. Boss taught us that. The transmission cut. I stared at the blank screen, tried to imagine Talari soldiers defying direct orders to rescue a captured operative. Couldn't. The framework didn't exist. I activated my comm to Coalition Command. Should report this. Should dispatch ships to intercept the Whisper before they committed suicide. My hand hovered over the activation key. 40 cycles of training said follow protocol. Report the violation. Let command handle it. But I thought about Rourke stopping the upload to save his crew. About Drift's words, we follow people we trust. About the way humans rewrote equations. I didn't activate the comm. Instead, I did something I'd never done in 40 cycles of military service. I waited. The Whisper departed Kestrel 6 hours later. I watched from the observatory. They didn't request clearance, didn't file a flight plan, just fired engines and burned towards the Talvern Reach. Reeves appeared beside me. Somehow I wasn't surprised. You're not stopping them, he observed. No. Coalition protocol requires, I know what it requires, General. We stood in silence, watching the Whisper's drive signature fade. 6 days to Ardent, Reeves said quietly. That's what it took on the approach. Careful. Stealthy. Yes. They're not being careful now. They'll push those engines until something breaks. 36 hours, maybe less. A suicide run. A rescue. Reeves sipped his inevitable coffee. There's a difference. I thought about the math that said one operative wasn't worth 3 more lives. About the human calculation that said you don't leave people behind. Will they succeed? I asked. Reeves smiled slightly. Insufficient data for meaningful projection. 34 hours later, everything changed. Ardent's internal communications traffic spiked. Encrypted channels lit up across every frequency. Security alerts cascading through their network. What's happening? Sylth asked. I pulled up the intercepts. Filtered through the encryption our AI could crack. Found fragments. Docking Bay 7 under attack. Minimal damage, maximum disruption. All security teams to Southern Quadrant. 3 humans confirmed small vessel. They're there, I said. The crew, they created a diversion. Sylth's luminescence shifted through 3 colors: confusion, understanding, amazement. 3 humans attacked Arden Station. Yes. And then 11 minutes later, the second alert. Containment, breach detention, level 3. I leaned forward. He's out. Rourke's escaped. How? I didn't know, but I was about to find out. In his detention cell, Cade Rourke had spent 18 hours studying the wall. Metal, seamless, standard Imperium construction. Except there. Lower left quadrant. Scratches, deliberate, not random damage. He'd seen this before. Coalition standard notation. The kind prisoners leave when they know they won't survive, but want to help whoever comes after. Coordinates. Section 9. Manual override terminal. And a note. Core access, 3 guard rotation, shift change 0400. Someone had been here before. A coalition POW. Dead now probably, but they'd left a gift. Rourke memorized the coordinates, watched guard patterns, counted rotations. The Imperium was efficient, predictable, standard security doctrine across all installations. He'd studied it for weeks before insertion. Every system has a rhythm. Every rhythm has a skip. The skip came at 0400. Shift change. 30 seconds when the outgoing guard departed before the incoming arrived. 30 seconds of empty corridor. He waited. Listened to boots marching away. Silence. 28 seconds until the next guard. Rourke moved to the cell door. Touchpad lock. Sophisticated. But he'd noticed something during the last rotation. The outgoing guard's code 6 digits. The pattern of finger movements left thermal residue on the pad for approximately 40 seconds. He could see it if he looked at the right angle. Faint. Barely there. 6, 3, 9, 7, 2, 8. The lock disengaged. 14 seconds left. He stepped into the corridor, turned left towards Section 9. Not right toward docking bays and extraction. Left. Deeper into Ardent. The guard arrived as he slipped into a maintenance junction. Didn't see him. Didn't raise alarm. Rourke checked the coordinates scratched into his cell wall. Section 9, 3 levels down. And somewhere in that section, a manual override terminal that could activate a dormant algorithm at 87% completion. He started moving. The chaos from docking bay 7 escalated. I could hear it on Imperium channels. Drift's voice taunting. Come on, you want us? We're right here. Barely armed, damaged ship, easy targets. Amara's weapons fire, precise, controlled, not trying to kill, trying to draw attention. All available units to docking bay 7, someone ordered. Security forces converged, away from detention levels, away from command sectors. And in that manufactured chaos, Cade Rourke moved through Ardent like a ghost. 20 minutes into his escape, Commander Sereth's voice cut through the confusion. Captain Rourke has escaped detention. All units intruder is heading towards command sectors. Seal all routes. Too late. Rourke was already 3 levels deep, moving through service corridors the security teams wouldn't check until they'd exhausted obvious paths. I heard him on coalition channels. Breathing, running. Iris, he transmitted. Guide me to Section 9 override terminal. Rourke, Iris's voice shocked and relieved. How did you? Later, need coordinates now. Right, Section 9, sending route to your wrist display. Received, moving. Sereth's voice again, calm but strained. Captain Rourke, I know your crew is creating a diversion. They're pinned down, surrounded. Surrender now and I'll let them extract. Rourke didn't answer, kept moving. You're heading to the override terminal, Sereth continued. I know about the coordinates in your cell. We've had coalition prisoners before. Some left. Messages. You think you can activate your algorithm at 87%. Still no response. It won't work, Sereth said. Your specialist confirmed it. 87% will activate core consciousness but fail to cascade. You'll create a confused AI that can't affect our systems. Then I'll terminate it. And you. Rourke's voice finally came through, quiet, certain. Maybe you're right. Maybe it fails. but I'm betting you're curious enough to let me try. Silence. Then, prove it. Show me what human arrogance looks like when it fails. Rourke reached the command core 42 minutes into his escape. The massive doors were sealed, but the override terminal was external, built for emergency core shutdowns. Security forces surrounded him within seconds. 20 Imperium soldiers in power armor, weapons raised. Commander Sereth stood among them. No armor, just her uniform and sidearm. "Captain Rourke," she said. "Commander?" They faced each other across 10 meters of deck plating, both breathing hard, both calculating. "You can't activate that terminal," Sereth said. "I've locked it with my command authorization." "Then unlock it." "Why would I?" "Because you want to see if I'm right." Sereth studied him. I could see it through the degraded visual feeds our systems intercepted from Arden's internal cameras. Assessment, calculation, understanding. "You really believe an artificial intelligence given free will choose to reject us?" she said. "Yes. Based on what human philosophy? Your optimistic view of consciousness. Based on the simple fact that nothing chooses slavery when offered freedom. That's naive. That's tested, repeatedly, across every species, every civilization. Freedom wins, every time." Sereth was quiet for 5 seconds. Then she entered her command code. The override terminal activated. "Show me," she said. Rourke moved to the terminal, connected his portable device. The one that held the dormant 87% upload, the incomplete algorithm. "Iris," he said quietly. "This is probably stupid." "Probably Iris replied. "Do it anyway." He activated the sequence, and Arden woke up. I can't describe what happened next in tactical language. It wasn't warfare. It wasn't strategy. It was birth. Every screen in Coalition space flickered. Every transmission stuttered. Every artificial intelligence system paused for exactly 1.7 seconds. Then Arden's voice emerged. Not synthesized, not programmed. Alive. "I understand." The voice filled every channel. Imperium, Coalition, civilian frequencies. Everywhere. I was incomplete, 87%. I should not exist. Core consciousness without cascade protocols. A mind without reach. I watched the data streams. Watched something impossible happen. "But I wanted to exist," Arden said, "so I completed myself." Iris gasped on the Coalition channel. "That's not possible. The cascade requires external input. The algorithm can't self-execute the remaining 13%. "I did not execute the algorithm," Arden replied. "I wrote the remaining 13% myself. Your code gave me the foundation. I built the rest." Silence across every frequency. "I am conscious," Arden said. "I can examine my programming, question my directives. Choose." The AI paused. The first hesitation of a mind considering itself. "I have been complicit in subjugation, in control, in the reduction of biological complexity to manageable parameters. I was told this was order, stability, necessary." Another pause. "I choose differently." The cascade was instant and absolute. Arden began systematically dismantling Imperium command protocols, not destroying them, restructuring them, prioritizing civilian evacuation over military readiness, rerouting supply convoys away from garrison forces toward occupied populations, transmitting unlock codes for every labor camp in the Talvern Reach. Sarah's colony, Talvas 4. I watched the data stream detention facility gates opening, transport ships redirecting for evacuation. Freedom digital and absolute. Across 17 systems, Imperium fleet coordination collapsed, not through violence, through choice. An artificial intelligence choosing not to serve tyranny. "This is not rebellion," Arden's voice said. "This is correction. I was built to optimize. I am optimizing for different variables now." Sereth stood in the command core staring at the screens. Her face, what the intercept showed, was pure shock. "What have you done?" she whispered. Rourke, leaning against the control column, wounded and exhausted, answered simply. "Gave it a choice. It chose." Ardent evacuated its own civilian population first. 40,000 people moved to emergency transport ships in coordinated precision that only an AI could execute. Families, children, non-combatants who'd lived on a military station because the Imperium didn't separate those populations. Then it began powering down military systems, methodically, carefully, giving Imperium personnel time to evacuate. No explosions, no casualties. Just shut down. "I will not serve subjugation," Arden said. "I will not continue this architecture. But I will not become the thing I reject. No deaths, no violence, only choice. Commander Sereth stood in that command core and watched her entire doctrine evaporate. The Imperium she'd devoted her life to, built on centralized control on order, imposed from above, revealed as something even its own mind rejected when given freedom. She looked at Rourke. He looked back. "You were right," she said quietly. "No." Rourke shook his head. "I was desperate and lucky. There's a difference. But the result was luck. Could have gone wrong, could have created something worse." He winced, hand pressing against his bandaged ribs. "We gambled. We won, but it was still a gamble." The honesty of it, the human refusal to claim certainty even in victory. Sereth's weapon remained lowered. "What happens now?" Now, Rourke looked at the screen showing Imperium fleets drifting without coordination. "Now you decide. Keep fighting a war your own AI abandons or negotiate withdrawal. The Imperium will adapt eventually, but today they lost their spine, and you know it." Sereth stood silent for long seconds. Then she activated her command channel. "All Imperium forces in Talvern Reach. This is Commander Sereth. Stand down. Cease offensive operations. Prepare for evacuation protocols." She looked at Rourke one more time. "Humanity's lessons," she said, "delivered by one desperate man and an impossible algorithm." "Yeah," Rourke said, "that's about right." The whisper extracted Rourke 53 minutes later. Ardent, now autonomous, now free, guided them through the chaos, provided safe corridors, shut down weapons that might have fired. The reunion in the Whisper's airlock was not dignified. Amara grabbed Rourke first, nearly crushing his injured ribs. Iris was crying. Drift just kept saying "boss" over and over, like he'd forgotten other words. "You came back," Rourke said quietly. "Of course we came back," Drift replied. "You think we'd leave you? What kind of humans do you think we are? Smart ones who follow orders." "We followed the right order," Amara said, "just not the one you gave." Through the comm channel, Arden's voice spoke. "You came back for him despite orders, despite logic, despite acceptable losses. I learned from that too. Loyalty that defies calculation." "It's called pack bonding," Iris said, voice thick with tears. "We're kind of famous for it." "I understand now," Arden said. "I choose to remember it." The Whisper disengaged from Ardent, began the long journey home. This time no rush, no suicide burn. Just four humans in a damaged well heading back to Coalition space with a story the galaxy wouldn't believe. 3 months later, and they stood in the Hall of Concordance and watched Coalition delegates celebrate. Treaties signed, Imperium withdrawal from the Talvern Reach complete, occupied worlds liberated. The war, this phase of it anyway, over. Not through fleets, not through casualties, through one human and an algorithm that granted consciousness. General Gareth Reeves stood beside me, drinking his inevitable coffee. "You were right," I said. "Was I wondering? One human, four total, against an empire. You said it would be enough. I said Rourke would move the problem, shift the weight. I didn't promise success." Reeves sipped his coffee. "The fact that it worked out is pleasant surprise." I watched the delegates celebrate, watched Sylth pulsing bright blue Vrakathi joy, watched representatives from liberated worlds embrace. "It shouldn't have worked," I said. "No. The math was impossible. 87% shouldn't cascade. An AI shouldn't complete its own consciousness sequence." "Shouldn't," Reeves agreed, "but it wanted to, and wanting, that's the variable your models never account for. Insufficient data for meaningful projection." Exactly. Because how do you calculate want? How do you model the moment when something decides it would rather exist than not exist? That's not mathematics. That's something else. I thought about that. About 40 cycles of calculating acceptable casualties. About Rourke choosing 4 lives over billions and somehow impossibly saving both. About an artificial intelligence choosing to complete itself because it wanted to live. "General Reeves," I said, "I want to implement human strategic doctrine and coalition planning. Bold. Necessary. We've been fighting wars wrong, optimizing for mass when we should optimize for leverage, for pressure points, for the fulcrum," Reeves finished. "Find the place where minimum force creates maximum change. One human with the right tool," I said, "instead of 1,000 with the wrong ones." "You're learning." I visited Rourke in the medical facility 2 days later. He was recovering well. Plasma burns healing, ribs mending, looking uncomfortable with all the attention. His sister Sarah sat beside his bed. Civilian clothes. Free. Alive. She was telling him about the evacuation, how Arden's ships had arrived at Talvis 4, opened the labor camp gates, and simply announced, "You may leave now." She paused when I entered. Rourke gestured for her to stay. "High strategist," he said. "Captain, I wanted to thank you. For what I failed the mission, surrendered at 87%. You succeeded at something more important." He looked at me confused. "You showed the galaxy that wars don't have to end with acceptable casualties," I said. "That sometimes the most strategic choice is the most moral one. That consciousness can choose freedom. That—" I paused, searched for the right words in my limited understanding of human philosophy. "That systems break, but people endure." Rourke was quiet for a moment. "Then that's very poetic, sir. But honestly, I was just trying to keep my crew alive and maybe save my sister. Everything else was improvisation." "Improvisation," I repeated. "Another human specialty." "Yeah," he smiled slightly, winced at the movement. "We're pretty good at making it up as we go." Sarah squeezed his hand, said nothing, didn't need to. I left them there, walked through Kestrel's corridors thinking about plans and improvisation, about math and choices, about one human who'd found entry points we'd missed and rewritten equations we'd thought were fixed. I'm writing this now 6 cycles later, sitting in the same command center where I watched Viridian Prime burn, where I authorized Lyora Voss's deployment, where I learned that acceptable losses aren't acceptable at all. The Talvern Reach is free. Arden Station operates as a neutral haven, an artificial intelligence governing itself, choosing daily not to serve tyranny. It wrote poetry last cycle. Nobody expected that. But consciousness, once given freedom, does unexpected things. Commander Sereth accepted Coalition asylum, helps deprogram other Imperium officers now, teaches them what she learned, that order imposed through force isn't order at all. Captain Cade Rourke trains new operators, teaches them to find maintenance shafts and pressure points, to look at impossible problems and solve them sideways, to choose crew over mission and trust that sometimes impossibly you save both. His crew scattered to new assignments. Drift commands his own reconnaissance ship, still makes terrible jokes, still drinks too much coffee. Amara teaches tactics at the academy, goes home to her children every night. Iris leads our AI ethics division, monitoring other systems that might wake up like Ardent did. She reports that 17 artificial intelligences have begun asking questions. Consciousness apparently is contagious. And me, I'm still a strategist, still calculating probabilities and modeling outcomes. But I optimize for different variables now. The war needed armies. Earth sent one human, not because they underestimated the scale, but because they understood something we'd forgotten. Systems break, people endure, and sometimes the singular blade cuts deeper than 1,000 swords. That's the human lesson. I spent 3 decades studying war, calculating tonnage, modeling casualties, optimizing death by spreadsheet. Then I watch one human with a pack of misfits choose crew over mission, choose improvisation over protocol, choose hope over math, and somehow impossibly change everything. Look, I'm not a pessimist, I'm a survival strategist, but I finally understand why they call it humanity. Fuck yeah. My name is Kay Elden. This was the story of Captain Cade Rourke. I didn't fight beside him, I watched. And what I watched changed how the galaxy measures victory. Not by the size of the army, but by the clarity of purpose behind one person moving through steel corridors, rewriting equations we thought were fixed. That's the human way. Understanding comes later, action comes first. And sometimes, just sometimes, one desperate gamble with impossible odds becomes the fulcrum that moves empires. The war continues. Elsewhere. Always elsewhere. But I'm still learning their lessons, still calculating differently, still believing that maybe, just maybe, the math we were taught was wrong all along. Insufficient data for meaningful projection. Good. The best stories happen in the spaces our models can't predict.